disaster, and you know it's over with. The game will never be the same. Disaster area music. All right, thanks for tuning in to another episode. And as we go into Disaster Area Radio, I just want to remind you guys to go to Google Play or iTunes and download that free app. That's right, we got that free app for you, and it's DIZAZTA. Make sure you download that free app and you can tune in 24 hours a day to Disaster Area Radio. Only 6 years old, with a spark in her eye, shy and innocent, with ambitions to fly. Always seemed happy, but at night she would cry, trying to understand why did her parents both die. Head on collision, bus driver was high. I told her it will be okay, I hated the lie. Tears run down her face into the air dry, just staring at the sun.
That night we went into the Harlem community to walk and mingle with the people. There was a kind of sense of loss. And as we passed people, some who were even strangers, we would stop and greet each other and say what this man had meant to us.
He was a master teacher. And there is no greater loss to a community than the loss of a master teacher.
During the next 3 days, 20,000 people endured sub-freezing temperatures to say goodbye to Malcolm X.
When the funeral was over and Malcolm was stripped of his Western clothes, and then the Muslims came and dressed him for proper Muslim burial, they had a service. The cemetery. And when we got there, you know, the professional grave diggers were standing there with their shovels, but some of the black brothers said, no, we can't let you do that. We dig this grave. You know, we cover this brother with dirt. And it was a moving moment. And I was proud at that moment to be black, and proud that my community and people no matter what had been said by the outside world, said to the brother we loved and respected and admired you. And so we buried him. And there it is.
I woke up this morning when the man said our freedom.
Malcolm X had a far-reaching effect on the civil rights movement. In the South, there had been a long tradition of self-reliance. Malcolm X's ideas now touched that tradition. In 1965, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee launched new strategies to challenge white control of Southern politics.
Our direction was clear. A heavy emphasis on nationalism. Strong as Malcolm had it, as strong as we could get it.
Carmichael and other SNCC members began a voter drive in Lowndes County, Alabama, known as Bloody Lowndes for its violence against blacks. Although 80% of the population was black, there were no black elected officials. Economically dependent on white plantation owners, many were afraid to join civil rights efforts, and none had been allowed to register to vote until early 1965.
Now in this country it says majority rules. We are 80% of the majority in this, we are 80% in this county, and we have the right to rule this county. We have the right to rule this county, and we're going to rule it. I don't care how poor we are and how black we are, we're going to govern this county.
Stokely Carmichael and Colton Cox and others who got together and told us, according to the Alabama law, if we didn't like what the Democratic Party was doing in our county or the Republican Party, we could form our own political organization, and it could become a political party.
George Wallace was in the head of the Alabama Democratic Party. The Democratic Party was racist. Its symbol at that time had a white rooster, and it had the words of white supremacy. That was the official emblem of the Democratic Party of Alabama. So here it would be easy for us to tell our people, hey, look, this party is not for us. We need our own party.
The new political party was named the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, but it became better known by the symbol it chose, a Black Panther.
And then when we chose that symbol as a Black Panther, then many of the people in our county started saying we were violent during that time. You know, now you got a violent group in Lowndes County who is turning out who's going to start killing white folks. But it wasn't that. It was a political, just a symbol to our organization that we was here to stay and we were going to do whatever needed to be done to survive.
Everybody was excited because they said, well, they have the rooster, which represents the Democratic Party, the elephant, which represents the Republican Party. Why can't we have a black cat to represent us? Everybody knows how a cat looked, and we were excited because we knew that if a person couldn't read and write, they sure knew the difference between a cat, an elephant, and a rooster.
SNCC went door to door and farm to farm, explaining to first-time voters the rules for taking part in the Lowndes County primary.
Now the law says that you can't vote in ours and also vote in the Democratic primary, which has to be held on the same day according to the law. So that what we'll have to do is vote on one and not the other. So if you want to vote for our candidates for sheriff, for tax assessor, tax collector, coroner, and the school board, then you have to vote for us.
On May 3rd, 1966, Lowndes County blacks voted for the first time since the end of Reconstruction. Some voted as Democrats in the Hayneville courthouse. Several blocks away, the Lowndes County Freedom Organization held its primary on the grounds of the First Baptist Church. Voters for the Independent Party were introduced to candidates for 7 offices, including sheriff, before casting their ballots. Even with the ever-present threat of violence, 900 black voters showed up that day to vote for the Panther.
This was the first time that the black people in this county came together to make choice of their own candidates for public office. It was important also because of the numbers of people that turned out to that election on that day and voted for their candidates and felt that they had done something for themselves to start making changes, the kind of changes they wanted to see happen in the system.
11 days later, Stokely Carmichael, representing the new militancy within SNCC, defeated John Lewis as national chairman.
If you took a clear look at John Lewis, he looked more like a young Martin Luther King Jr. than anything else.
It was almost like a coup. People were saying that we need someone who would stand up to Lyndon Johnson. We need someone who would stand up to Martin Luther King Jr.
It was clear that he'd been alienated from the SNCC staff. So the vote against him represented that. But more importantly, it represented the clear insight of the SNCC organizers that understood that the question of morality, upon which King's organization depended to bring about changes in the community, were not possible. The SNCC people had seen raw terror, and they understood properly that this raw terror had nothing to do with morality, but had to do clearly with power.
It had been almost a year since Congress passed the Voting Rights Act, but white resistance remained strong. In Mississippi alone, more than 300,000 blacks were not registered to vote. James Meredith, the first black person to enroll at the University of Mississippi, was determined to change all that. On June 5, 1966, Meredith left Memphis, Tennessee, prepared to walk 220 miles to Jackson, Mississippi. He called it a march against fear.
To point up and challenge, if necessary, this all-pervasive and overriding fear that's so much a part of the day-to-day life of the Negro in this country, and especially in Mississippi.
On the second day of his march, James Meredith was shot from ambush.
We, as you know, have been greatly concerned about the shooting of James Meredith. We have expressed that.
Leaders of major civil rights organizations rushed to Memphis, Tennessee, where James Meredith was hospitalized. They vowed to continue the march for him.
And something needs to be done to make it clear that we are not going to be stopped. We're not going to be intimidated.
Only 6 years old, with a spark in her eye, shy and innocent, with ambitions to fly. Always seemed happy, but at night she would cry, trying to understand why did her parents both die. Head-on collision, bus driver was high. I told her it would be okay, I hated to lie. Tears run down her face, into the air dry, just staring at the sun.